So we had to pack up our belonging in one little brown shopping bag size. That was it. We walked out of our home with that little bag, and we no longer ever saw any part of that house after the war, because everything was taken away. From this ghetto area, we were marched through town into a brick factory, brickyard. So one wonders, what are we doing in a brickyard that has absolutely nothing but bricks? It's a totally barren piece of land. But it was also a very scientifically organized situation. See, a brickyard is adjacent to a railroad track, and that is what they needed. I will have to give some very important statistics here. The Germans came in on March 19, and in 51 days, they managed to relocate 440,000 Hungarian Jewish people and Gypsies. This is an unimaginable amount of people. And how they did it? Scientifically. They herded us into boxcars, cattle cars, and the capacity of a cattle car would hold maybe 20 people, but they herded in 80 people in this small enclosure, and then they locked the gate on us, and the cattle car had merely a small little window on it, which also was had a barbed wire across. People were squashed together, and in order to allow my parents to sit, I stood for 3 whole days. And it was atrocious being in this environment. People were losing their minds, people were irritable, they were hungry, they were exhausted. It was an indescribable tragedy. And I usually cite one very sad situation. In the corner sat a young woman, and she had her baby on her bosom, but that baby was already dead. And many other very sad events took place. We had no water, and going without water for 3 days is the most horrendous thing next to any other physical illness. I have to point out something very important here. In order to make, but these trips were called transports, and the transports the transport cars were connected, coupled together, about 25 of these cattle cars. So you can imagine that at the arrival to our destination, there were approximately 3,500 people getting out of this wagon. And still we had no idea where we're going, and I think that's a very important factor. We had absolutely no idea where we're going. So now we arrived to this strange destination. The train stops, and we have no idea where we are. However, later I found out it was Auschwitz in Poland. Now they opened the door, and a strange-looking man dressed in a striped uniform comes inside and hollers at us in a strange language, which we kind of understood meant to get out. But get out, but leave all your belongings in the car. Because there again, that last remaining shreds of stuff that we had with us was left there. And we never saw that again either. Another important little statistics I want to throw in. Earlier I mentioned the fact that a lot of our monies were taken away on our valuables. And ironically, that money paid for the hundreds of thousands of railroad workers who did all these transporting, because those people were paid. Those were legitimate Hungarian railroad workers or German railroad workers, and this was a job for them. So they were transporting commodity. They were not saying that we are shipping now 3,000 Jewish people. everything was in codes, everything was in hiding, everything was a secret. And that's why they could carry all this out with the least amount of resistance. So now we are at this Auschwitz location. They herd us out of the cattle car, and then they separate the men and the women, and I am standing with my mother, and my aunt is looking at me and said, you know what, hold on to each other so you won't lose one another, which was an excellent advice. However, it backfired. Because once we approached a group of Nazi officers, we were asked to stop, and then one of the officers raised his index finger and pointed at you, go this way, and the other person go that way. So you follow side language, and as I move away, I kind of wave to my mother saying, I'll see you later. Unfortunately, that was the last time I have ever seen my mother, because she was directed directly into the gas chambers, as well as many other people who were part of the whole picture.